1. Around 5 years ago, I worked at a tiny convenience store in the downtown area of a large city on the East Coast where I used to live. While I do have many stories about the people I saw in that place, for now this is the epic tale of McDonald's hooker. My first encounter with McDonald's hooker really set the tone for the rest of the time that I knew her. She came in baked as an apple pie and asked for hot water to make tea. I directed her to our coffee pot in the back that had a hot water attachment and told her she could fill her own cup. I had a line of customers at the register, so I left her to her own devices while I worked. I overheard one customer say that someone was making a mess at the coffee station and repeatedly burning themselves. We closed shortly after that. I didn't notice her leaving, but I am sure that she was the last one at the coffee station and it was a mess. There was water everywhere and she had opened every single sugar packet and left a paper in the puddle on the floor. There had to have been around 40 packets of sugar gone. It was at this point that I started to wonder if she was actually the Roach from Men in Black. I came to find out later that intense cravings for sugar are a side effect from being treated for certain kinds of drug addiction. Fast forward a few weeks. The store is once again crowded and McDonald's hooker with a very twitchy male friend in tow shove their way to the front of my line and demand several cartons of cigarettes. I decided it was easier to serve them than to argue with them about the line and tell them the total, which was over $100. At this point, McDonald's hooker proceeds to hand me a credit card that has been snapped in half, with the magnetic strip still intact. I tell her that I can't accept this as a form of payment, just as her male counterpart yells, "Fuck this," and runs out the door, leaving her behind in front of a line of grumpy people. She freaks out and says she'll be back and runs after him. I put all the cigarettes back and continue with my day. Fast forward to around closing time that night, and a friend I had recently made who worked at the nearby McDonald's comes in, throws her visor on the counter and says, "Do I have a story for you?" She then proceeds to tell me that there is a hooker that picks up clients at her McDonald's. She describes her features and I realize that she's talking about McDonald's hooker, which is why we named her that. Before we were calling her Sugar Lady. My friend proceeds to tell me that she was rather infamous at her McDonald's, not just for picking up her clients in the dining area, or for soliciting random customers who were just trying to eat their cheap fast food in peace, or for being repeatedly dragged out of the men's bathroom when caught performing her services, or even for how she regularly announced that she would exchange services for menu items. Apparently, 2 Big Macs got you a hand job. No, all of this behavior was fairly routine at that particular McDonald's. Frankly, there are Brillo pads less rough than the area she worked in. What really made McDonald's hooker the bane of my friend's existence was the caramel pump. This McDonald's had recently added a McCafe area, and with it came pumps of flavored sugar syrup. As previously mentioned, McDonald's hooker had quite the sweet tooth, and had become obsessed with the caramel pump, which was located just out of reach behind the counter. Every time my friend turned her back, McDonald's hooker would attempt to steal said caramel pump, going so far as to lock herself in the handicapped stall of the women's restroom and guzzle caramel straight out of the pump whenever she managed to grab it. Management had finally had enough and had banned her from the dining area, unless she was actually buying something, leaving her to ply her trade near the end of the drive-thru and the dumpsters out back. That day, as she had been earning those Big Macs behind the dumpsters, a twitchy guy she had been seen with occasionally decided it was time to up their game. He attacked her current client with a brick, stole the man's wallet and car keys, dragged McDonald's hooker into the car with him, and they proceeded to make a badly planned getaway via the drive-thru, during which they managed to hit both walls, breaking off both side mirrors, and then speeding off down the road. Now, there was absolutely no parking anywhere near my store, so they must have ditched the car somewhere. I assume it was desperation that led them to snap the stolen card in half, so that it couldn't be identified when they tried to buy cigarettes from me. And then paranoia that led them to flee before I could ask them any questions. Our final encounter actually led to her being banned from my store. It was nearly a year before I had seen her again, presumably because of jail time. It was a busy day, and in a rare change of pace, I was not the only staff member present. The owner and two of his family members, who were my co-workers, were dealing with some kind of paperwork and distributor issue at the office, which was near the coffee station. I was at the register dealing with a long line of lottery customers. McDonald's hooker comes in with a different, even twitchier dude, and she's carrying a worn-out bowling bag as a purse. They head straight for the coffee station, and just starts dumping entire displays of flavored creamers and sugar packets into her bag. My boss sees this and rushes over to her frantically, asking her to put back what she has taken. Twitchy man gets in between them and babbles angrily at my boss, poking him firmly in the chest, and calling him a variety of racial slurs. I assume it was a variety because he couldn't place my boss's accent, so he just used every slur he knew. As soon as trouble starts, my other two co-workers close in on Twitchy, and three of them start guiding him towards the door while frantically repeating, "Sir, you must go now, sir." This whole time, McDonald's hooker is still stealing every sugary thing she can fit in her bag. Once they had backed him up to the door, he realizes that he is losing ground, so he grabs onto one side of the door frame and starts threatening everyone around him. At this same time, a friend and regular customer of mine is trying to enter the store. He has no idea what's going on. He's just coming in to buy a Faygo or something before he waits on his bus. Now he is a large, burly, hairy dude, a bit intimidating. Just as he is trying to push past to get in the store, Twitchy shouts, "I'll knock y'all out with one punch." He starts pointing at the faces of the men around him. "You and you and you and..." He stops at my large, hairy friend, whom I think he thought had snuck up on him, and his expression completely changes. "Hey man, I'm cool. We're cool, it's cool, I'm leaving." He then shouts to McDonald's hooker, "Hey bitch, we're leaving." And then, with almost superhuman speed and strength, McDonald's hooker charges through the crowd and out the door, with her bag of stolen sugar and Twitchy close behind. My boss put up still frame from the camera with a note saying that she and anyone accompanying her are banned from the store. And that was the last I saw of her. I hear a while later she had been arrested outside McDonald's, but I'm not entirely sure what the charges were. And thus concludes the tale of McDonald's hooker. 2. I haven't worked fast food in 3 years now, thank God, but I still have many stories to tell from my time. But tonight, I will tell my favorite of them all. I live in a small college town. It has a population of about 12,500 people, with the biggest commerce being onions, potatoes, and livestock. So the largest group of customers we had were old farmers, young college students, and teenagers needing to entertain themselves, where the only activities, other than the local movie theater, is drinking, smoking pot, or shenanigans. So now that I set up the lore of my experience, I will set the scene. We're halfway our 2 to 3 hour, and I'm multitasking on both taking orders and collecting on them. I'm in a groove too, flying through like a flaming bat out of hell. Time for orders, we're at 55 seconds, I recall. I'm in the middle of collecting some change and I hear the headset beep. Hand money out window with corporate spill, thank you. And hit the headset. "Welcome, may I take your order?" Bah! I froze up. By this point in my fast food career, I thought I'd seen more than my fair share. I look up and out the window towards the sign. There was a goddamn station wagon right out of the 70s, and inside was 2 teenagers, a sheep, a goat, and 2 fucking chickens. I was still a socially awkward teenager myself, freshly out of high school. I had no fucking words for what I saw. One of these morons in the car was wrestling the goat to stay inside of the car. They backed up to the drive-thru as it took them almost 2 minutes to even state their order. Manager is so pissed because we are losing business. Actually calls the police for loitering, if you want to know what for. But kids get their damn burgers, got nuggets because we're going to try to induce cannibalism. And as they get out of the drive-thru, police arrive. Turns out the station wagon is stolen. Their animals are stolen and one kid had pot on him. Don't do drugs, kids. 3. I worked at Chick-fil-A as a shift manager. Our store was in a large Walmart shopping center. Every store in that shopping center hated being next to Walmart because the manager was mean and rather spiteful. If there were problems reported with his store, he would fire the employees who reported the issue instead of fixing the problem. And the problem usually went unfixed until it turned into an emergency. Every year he would express his ire for the fast food restaurants next to him by plowing the snow in his parking lot into large piles that blocked the entrances to our parking lots. Fast forward 3 months. Anyway, it's almost summertime now. During lunch rush, when our parking lot was full, people would park at the far end of the Walmart parking lot and walk over. We had been told by multiple customers that there was a growing fire ant nest in one of the islands in the Walmart parking lot. We advised people to be careful. We called multiple times to the manager, asking him to get an exterminator. He refused, telling us he would sue us for harassment because we were always calling asking him to spend money. So one day a woman and 3 children come in during the lunch rush. They order 4 large meals to go and walk out. A couple minutes later, the woman walks back in, obviously anxious and paranoid, and waits at the back of the serving line. The line isn't moving fast and she's getting more jittery by the second. So I walk over to check on her. I expected something like, "You forgot one of my sandwiches or fries in the order." Or, "My child dropped their drink in the parking lot, can you give us a free one?" As I get closer, she is crying. I ask her what is wrong. She says, "Excuse me, can you help me? My son is being eaten by fire ants." Cue jaw drop. I ran as fast as possible toward the Walmart island. I spot their car immediately. Her 2 children are standing next to the car, watching the third one who is dancing around in circles screaming. His legs are covered by ants. I immediately realize the problem. If this had happened closer to the store, I could have used a hose to spray them off his legs. But this is the Walmart parking lot, and there is nothing nearby. Their meals were still in the bag, forgotten, on top of the car. I grabbed their drinks, 4 large lemonades, grabbed 2 cups and sloshed them with as much force as possible onto the front of his legs to wash off as many ants as possible. Next 2 lemonades, back inside legs. 99% of the ants washed off. Grab the fast food bag, rip open a Chick-fil-A sandwich, drop fillet on ground. I have 2 lightly buttered buns. I use the buns to carefully wipe the remaining, maybe dozen, ants off him. Kid's still screaming, but at least the initial emergency is over. Bring him, we have a first aid kit inside. She scoops up the screaming kid, and the other 2 kids follow in her shadow. Bring her in through the back of the store, delivery entrance. Rush to office to grab first aid kit. There's burn cream inside. She rubs it on his legs while I call 911. Ambulance arrives within 5 minutes. Kid is not screaming anymore, but still crying. Paramedics take over. The mother gives me a hug and thanks me between tears for helping them. 24 hours later, I learned that the Walmart manager had been sued by a local family for dangerous conditions at his store. The manager was fired and replaced with an interim manager. Exterminator showed up within a week, and fire ants were killed. Fast forward 3 months. End of summer, but still hot as hell outside. 2 women and 1 young boy come in the store. One of them looks familiar, but not sure why. They get up to the counter and ask to speak with me. She tells the other woman that I helped her son when he was attacked by fire ants. Realize it's the woman from a few months ago, and the boy sitting there is the one I helped. Hey sport, how are you? He shows me his legs. There is visible scarring from the ordeal, but he looked mostly healed. Give him a high five. The other woman starts interviewing me, and I realize she works for the newspaper. I am being written up in the paper as a local hero. As things were wrapping up, I tell them not to go anywhere. I have something I need to give them. Come back in a couple of minutes with 4 Chick-fil-A combos and lemonades to replace the ones I used 3 months ago. She hugs me again. 4. I heard this from a fellow car hop while she was taking an order, and then through a few others who talked to this guy. This will not be verbatim, obviously, but as close as I can remember it being told. I will be changing my co-worker's name for privacy's sake, and so here it goes. Sharon, my co-worker, will be S, M will be manager on duty, OM will be off-duty manager, who was in at the time, and then there is me, and lastly RG for racist obsessed guy. S. Hello, this is Sharon, what can I get for you today? RG. Sharon, that's a nice name, Sharon, Sharona. She started looking concerned and told me, everyone, including M and OM, that there was some weird customer repeatedly saying her name, and it made her uncomfortable, and she didn't know what to do. It should be noted that she is a young black girl. RG. Are you guys not taking orders? Or just not my order because y'all are racist? She told everyone this, by which point OM went outside to talk to him and S left the speaker on. RG. Oh, now y'all are gonna stand out a black Hispanic to make me think you are not racist. She always had a pretty dark tan, but by no means does that make her black. M. Don't talk about my employees like that. RG. Are you a manager then? M. Yes, me and OM are, as OM goes back into fuming. RG. Good, then I need to see a manager. Are y'all just not taking orders, or racist because I am black? His wife, visibly embarrassed, still sitting in the car while RG is standing in front of her yelling. I'm a doctor, and do you know what would happen if a patient came in with 4 bullet holes in his chest and I didn't treat him? He would die. Now y'all are not serving me because I am black is unacceptable. M. Sir, I am really sorry for the inconvenience we may have caused you. Can I take your order now? RG. This isn't some self-service BS place. M. I am not asking you to come inside to serve yourself, merely what you would like to order. I can take it in person right now. RG, through all his ranting and raving, he said Sharon's name at some point. M. Oh, so a car hub did speak to you and try to take your order. He wasn't so much asking, but stating it. RG. No, I was just saying some random ass name I made up. No one ever talked to me or took my order. You racist motherfucker. Calling me a liar? M. Since you know our car hop's name, she obviously introduced herself and asked what you wanted to order, right? Do you want me to take your order now or not? RG sputtered out some unintelligible nonsense and got back into his car and drove off. At which point he could plainly see Sharon and another black woman watching him through the doorway. He also would have seen the drive-thru girl at the window as he drove around the building. Shaking my head, we at Speedy's are a very diverse group. We have people working here of all ethnicities, from black and white to Mexican and Asian and so on. It just so happened that night, we were the only 2 white people up front. Myself and M. Don't be so quick to call us white racists and think you can get free stuff out of it. Besides, if we were actually racists, why would we give you free stuff for insulting us? Try again, as I say. 5. This time I happened to be working the drive-thru window as the cashier and food bagger at a popular chicken chain restaurant. It was almost that wonderful time of night where we closed, a time I no longer had to deal with customers. We were pretty slow at that time, but one car happened to show up in the drive-thru. A co-worker starts taking the order, nothing out of the ordinary, until he asks one final question. Anything else? As I wasn't wearing a headset, I had no idea how they responded. But my fellow worker turns to me and says, "Brace yourself, this may be rough." The car rapidly screeches around the corner and stops at the window. I begin my usual scripted spiel, but was quickly cut off by 3 individuals. The guy who took our order had the absolute worst attitude I have ever heard in my life. So disrespectful. Co-worker takes the time to explain by anything else he meant like sauces or extra napkins or whatever. But these people took it way too personally as an insult to their intelligence or whatever. This, my friends, is only the beginning. These people ordered 3 separate orders, all paid in cash. I have to repeat the order back to them each time, and I could tell they were getting more and more irritated as I politely carried on. There were a total of 3 drinks, 1 per meal. But I noticed that there was also a cup of ice added to the last one as well. I handed the first 3 out, but as I held out the cup of ice, the woman driving the car glared at me with the intensity of 1,000 soccer moms who were accidentally given Coke Zero instead of Diet Coke. "I didn't order no 4th drink, take it back," she screeched. "You do realize that this is a cup of ice, right?" "Someone must have ordered it," I replied. "Oh yeah, that's mine." "What?" I even repeated that part back, but obviously their time was far more valuable than the lowly service workers such as I. These mental gymnastics severely overworked their collective composition of a singular brain cell. From there I chose to ignore them by hanging out away from the window by the food bagging area. I tidy up their 3 individual orders, making sure the bags are well stocked with requested sauces, and carry them over to the window. It took maybe 30 seconds. I've been doing this thing for about 2 years, but that apparently was far too long for them to wait. They snatch the food out of my hand, and do that thing where they dig around the bag making sure I didn't screw it up. One cusses me out. "Hey, dipshit, you forgot the sriracha sauce." It appeared they didn't order that sauce according to the register, but whatever. I put on my friendliest face and kindly gave them the sauce. As the car begins to pull away, the lady in the back yells, "Fuck you," to my co-worker, "and Senor Sniffle, you did a great job. Wait, no, actually, I changed my mind. Fuck you, especially." Co-worker pokes his head out the window and yells back, "Have a great day, never come back." Now, who had the worst attitude again? Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to whatever I actually ended up calling this video. Something about adventures in fast food and retail. I'm not sure, even now I haven't decided it. I assume I will have picked a proper title by the time you hear this, because it'd be weird if I hadn't. Of course, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I had a very fun time recording it. I also had some flashbacks to when I worked in a convenience store. And it actually reminds me, I was just thinking there about dealing with bad customers and how unreasonable some people can be. I remember a time I got yelled at by a customer when I hadn't done anything wrong. And let me explain the situation to you. It was, I think it was about 8:30 at night, maybe near enough 9 o'clock. I remember I was sweeping the floor before it got mopped. And it was probably me that mopped, I can't remember. Anyway, sweeping the floor, minding my own business, just kind of my own little world. And the guy on the till must have ID'd the girl he was serving, which is what you do when somebody looks under 25 in the UK. It's kind of the rules. You don't do it, you could lose your job, and there's also a chance you could get into some trouble legally if you don't get into the practice of doing that, obviously. Because the police will send in test purchases, and if the police do it, and somebody looks under 25, and you fail a test purchase, you've actually broken the law because the police use people underage. Whereas your company will send people in to test you who are of legal age, but they're under 25. Anyway, he done his job. ID'd this girl, and she threw a little bit of a hissy fit, as I recall, or had she? I'm getting muddled up here. No. What happened was, she wasn't very happy about it. But the boyfriend, came in afterwards trying to get served for her, and you can't serve somebody. If you've never done these kind of jobs before, just to explain, if you have to refuse somebody for whatever reason, to refuse to serve somebody, you can't actually serve somebody on their behalf, right? So if he'd came in on his own and just purchased whatever he'd wanted, we wouldn't have known, that'd be it. But if he makes a point of telling us he's buying it for her and causing a fuss about it, then we have to refuse, because they call that intent to supply or something. I believe that's what it's called, which is also against the law. And again, you could get into the same kind of trouble. So, knowing that he was trying to purchase these cigarettes for this girl he'd refused, he had to refuse. To refuse the husband or the boyfriend, whoever he was. So he throws a little bit of a hissy fit, yells at him, and I'm staying kind of near the till area with my sweeping at this point, because he's getting a bit shouty, and I've had to deal with shouty customers before. It's not fun, but sometimes you have to make sure people are safe. So I'm staying near the till area in case anything happens. And so he finishes yelling at the guy, and he then turns around, sees me there. Again, I'm just sweeping, I'm not even looking at him. I'm just sweeping, sees me there, and he goes, "And see you, I'm gonna get you." Then walks out. And I guess he must have caught me on a bad night, because usually that would just wash off my back. And this is one of the few times I've really lost my temper in these places, and over the course of almost 15 years, it happened a handful of times, so I think I did pretty well. And so I said, "Excuse me? What?" So I ran after this creature and said, "Okay, if you want to fight, let's go now then." He said, No. I said, No, it's fine, don't worry about it. You want to go now? His defence for choosing not to fight me, even though he'd been brave enough to insist he was going to get me, was that I had a broom in my hand. Yeah, I guess they thought I was going to sweep the floor with him or something. Anyway, and that brings this video to a close. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.